You must understand, as it is in the natural, so it is in the spiritual. That when we walk in faith, when we walk in the Spirit, that we go from faith to faith and from glory to glory. That God has so many things for us. If we are willing to submit ourselves enough, God will take us from one realm to the next realm, to the next realm, to the next realm. But He cannot do it if we become too attached to any particular realm.
Used to struggle, I remember those nights, but I ain't going back to that light. I always knew wrong from right, but I ain't going back to that light. Now I ain't never ever going back to that light. I ain't never ever going back to that light. Goodbye. I ain't going back to that light. Now I ain't never ever going back to that light. No.
In all of my past lives, I've played the bad guy, a man of sorrow with no tomorrow. I walk with the devil by my side. I believe in second chances, people taking second glances. May have knocked me down, but not out. Yeah, I'm still standing. I would never let the dark times of my life ever get the best of me. A little alcohol and some Adderall, never knew that would be the death of men. Witchcraft and I'm praying I pass every time the devil is testing me. Well, I look up to the hills where my help comes from to receive my destiny. Sipping on coke and gin and drowning when the love of God reached down and found me. Everybody mama saying I was drowning, wrapped His loving arms around me. Everybody wanna talk down, thought I was out for the count when I point their fingers. At the end of the day, I was going insane. No love, but a heart full of anger. I flirted with suicide, cause nothing seemed to satisfy. Tormented from the other side with demons screaming within my mind. But I found a hope for the hopeless, a free gift I have opened through the grace of Christ. I found focus, and the death brings life to the broken.
We used to struggle, I remember those nights, but I ain't going back to that light. I always knew wrong from right, but I ain't going back to that light. Now I ain't never ever going back to that light. I ain't never ever going back to that light. Goodbye. And I ain't going back to that light. Now I ain't never ever going back to that light. No.
Get a little closer to the speakers as I speak this realness. Walk a block in my shoes, then talk about an illness. Chemical imbalance, getting told that you will never be just like the rest of the kids, even though you just as clever. At my school I never did fit in, and even better, did I belong inside the box, y'all shut me in forever. Talk about a struggle, done everything but summer. Just to feel accepted, I was ripping dead, break the law. Now too many need me, heed this wisdom from this brother fussing. Coming from my soul and in my heart, this song without the cussing. Trust me, if I could vent, I would till I was straight infected. Cause I'm an addict, so venting's dope, but without the stepping. Ripping for the unguided, screaming nightly in a mighty way. Standing in the gap with my brothers is where I'll always stay. Always pray for the sin in me, myself is my worst enemy. Them nights I remember intensely, like yesterday, Jelly ripped the beat.
Used to struggle, I remember those nights, but I ain't going back to that light. I always knew wrong from right, but I ain't going back to that light. Now I ain't never ever going back to that light. I ain't never ever going back to that light. Goodbye. And I ain't going back to that light. Now I ain't never ever going back to that light. No.
So what begins to happen to us, the seduction that we often fall prey to, is to become satisfied to be in this realm when God is calling us to the next realm, and we get stuck in one state when God has something else for us, and you can't get what God has until you give up what you had. So Jesus says, don't try to stay where I'm trying to get you out of.
We used to struggle, I remember those nights, but I ain't going back to that light. I always knew wrong from right, but I ain't going back to that light. No, I ain't never ever going back to that light. No, I ain't never ever going back to that light. Goodbye. No, I ain't going back to that light. No, I ain't never ever going back to that light. No.